everybody, and welcome to Everyday Manna. Today, we are going to be doing a little bit of a different program than what I normally do. I have had several people request that I show how to properly freeze. In this case, we're going to be doing different kinds of meats, but how to properly freeze things to where they don't get freezer burned, and you can, in this case, we're going to prep ahead. We're buying meat in bulk. I'm going to show you how to cut it into individual servings, and then show you a couple of different ways of freezing. So we're going to get started. The first thing we're going to do is a pork loin. Now, if you have a big box grocery store, as they call them, like the Costco or the Sam's Club, that kind of thing, you can buy your meat in bulk. But even at your grocery stores, oftentimes they will have pork loins on sale for, $1.49 a pound. But when you look at this thing whole, it looks big, and you're like, what am I going to do with all that? Well, that's kind of what I'm going to show you with this today. We've got some other ones coming. Now, the first thing you need to do, obviously, is take off the wrapper, but you can get a lot of meals out of this, and you can freeze it. That way you've got it when you need it. So the first thing I'm going to do, actually, is cut this thing in half because it is so big. So we're going to cut it in half. Then I'm going to move half to my cutting board here. And this is where you have to make a decision of, do I want to roast? Do I want pork chops? What do you want? Now, what I like to do when I get one of these is do a roast. I like to just go ahead and cut a pork roast, and that's what I'll do with this one. But I also like to cut pork chops of different lengths. This is a boneless pork loin. As you can see, there's no bone here. There is a fat cap. Now, what I like to do first is to cut through the fat cap before I slice it. And that way, I don't want to cut it off because this is a very, very lean cut of meat. That way, you're cutting through that silver skin that's underneath, and it won't curl and buckle on you. So just make a couple of slits. It's just easier if you do it before you start slicing until you get down to the meat. It's about, quarter of an inch thick. Now, you will need a good sharp knife. The ones that I really like, I get asked this all the time, so this program is going to kind of be what are some of my favorite tools too. I personally really like the Victorinox Fibrox handle. This is a grippy handle. Like when you're handling something like this, your hands are going to be slick. This is a grip handle so that you're less likely to slip with the knives, but it needs to be very sharp. So I'm going to turn it over, and I'm going to cut pork chops as thick as you like. I like mine. Sometimes I like them to be thicker. Sometimes I like them to be thinner. I'm going to do both. I'm going to cut some thicker, because what I'll do then is when I'm ready to cook is I'll cut a slit here and I'll stuff them. So I'm going to do 4 of them thicker, about the same thickness. If you need to pull out a ruler, go ahead, by all means, go ahead. And I like to go ahead and cut everything. Then I'll show you we're going to do a couple of different methods of freezing. Okay, so I'm doing mine in 4 because that's the size family I have, is 4. Then we really like thin cut pork chops, just pan fried. So, and if you don't want to do this part, by the way, all you have to do is go to the butcher counter, take the piece of meat that you've chosen, tell the butcher what you want, and they will slice it for you and put it back in the package. Then you can come home and do the part that we're going to do in a few minutes. If you're not comfortable doing this part, your butcher will do this for you. So I'm going to cut some, we like them thin. You can use that, or you can use a chef's knife. Either one. That's a boning knife. Either one will work. I want to show you both. But you do need a sharp knife. Cut them in the sizes that you want. Now with these, we can eat more than one a piece. So I like to do mine in packages of 8. That gives us 2 a piece. So I'd like to cut mine in packages of 8, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so there's 2 meals. Let's put that here. We'll go ahead and put this to the side for a minute. And then I'm going to take this other half and I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to do this as a roast. So you could actually get 2 roasts out of this easy. So I will just cut this in half and I will freeze both of them separately. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. And with this little piece, you could either cut more thin cut pork chops, or you could cut it into thin pieces just like this. And then take your individual little pieces and cut. And notice I'm working on plastic boards. I've moved my wooden cutting board over there because I don't put raw meat on wooden boards. And then cut it into strips, and you've got, for a stir fry, you've got it already done. It is a very economical way of buying food. If you can buy it in bulk, and this particular cut of pork is very lean, and you can do the same thing with a pork tenderloin, beef tenderloin. It's going to be a lot more expensive, but you can butcher that yourself. We're not going to do that today. I might do that on another upcoming program because they can be a little more expensive. However, it is a whole lot cheaper to buy it and butcher it yourself than it is to buy individual beef tenderloin steaks or filet mignon. It's a lot cheaper, and you can get a lot of meals out of one, but in this case, we're doing pork loin. It's very lean, very, very lean. If you see a piece of, like right here, I've got a little piece of a gristle. I don't want to put that in here, so I'm going to just kind of cut that out with my little paring knife. I've got 3 knives working here. I've got a paring knife, a chef's knife, and a boning knife. So out of that 1 piece of beef, or I keep calling it beef, pork loin, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 meals for 4 people. So it was $17 for the whole thing. So you're talking a little over, what, $1.30, 40 cents, or $5, excuse me. No, let me think. $3. Golly, you wouldn't think I majored in math, would you? $3.25 or so per meal. You break that down per person, and it's very, very economical. Now, once you have all this, and again, your butcher will cut this part for you. You might have to cut the little slices, but that's not a problem. That's very easy to do. You saw me do it. Let me wash my hands real quick. Now, if you have a, oh my goodness, a vacuum seal appliance like I have here, this is very simple. It's worth the investment. If you buy meats in bulk, it is worth the investment to buy one of these. They're about, I think this one was like $80, but it's going to last me forever. I had one before, and I had it for over 20 years, and so it was well worth the investment. Now, my particular model, I will tell you, my particular model is the Nesco, N-E-S-C-O. There's different brands on the market, but you want to get one that's simple. Don't get the complicated machines out there. This is my favorite. Now, my particular model, and again, you're going to need to follow your manufacturer's directions. My particular model will cut the bags for me. So what you want to do is decide how big you want your bag, and you want it to be a little bigger and then mine cuts it. So I now have the baggie. It comes in rolls, just like this. And I'm going to seal the bag itself. So you just put it over. I like to do it where the curly side's down. It's a little easier. Put it down and then just hit the manual seal button on mine. It will depend on your particular brand as to how you do it. Mine just does it automatically. It takes about 9 seconds. I'm going to let that one go. I already have one here done. And it seals that side. Come on. Why are you being contrary here? Okay. We are, I've got one here, and I'm going to show you what to do. I'm going to put my thick cut chops in here in one layer. And if you want to go ahead and add your brine or marinade, go ahead and freeze it in there. It's fine. I've done that many times. All right, I like to get them all one level. I like to squeeze them down in there, you know, fairly tight, as tight as I can. See, it's sealed. We'll use that one in just a second. Now, my particular model, what you do, and again, this will depend on your model. You put the bag, this is the little sealing strip, and mine has a little ledge thing there that you can put the ends under. Just makes it so much easier. Put it down and then hit your vacuum and seal, and it makes that noise, and you can see it sucking the air out. That's what it does. It sucks the air out of the bag and it seals it for you. And mine's telling me it's got about 5 seconds here. So while we're waiting, we can go ahead and do our, I made this a little bit big. I didn't necessarily need to make it that big. 4. You gotta wait. Mine has a little clock up here that it counts down and tells me when it finishes sealing. Okay, I'll show you one more with this. And see, you have a beautiful vacuum sealed bag that is sealed on both ends. Label it with a Sharpie marker, which I didn't bring out here. Should have brought a Sharpie. I just write on there what it is and the date I froze it. That will go in your freezer for, you know, when you vacuum seal it, you can keep it for up to probably about a year. If it lasts out, I mean, you'll eat it before then. The date you freeze it and put it in your freezer. And then when you want to thaw it, all you got to do is take it out. You can either put this bag in a container of cold, ice cold water to thaw it, or put it in your refrigerator overnight. Great economical way to preserve your bulk buying meats. It really does a great job. And I love to watch it just kind of suck all that air out of there. I really, really do like my little vacuum seal pack. But I'm going to show you what to do. Okay, while that's finishing, I'm going to show you what to do if you don't have one of those. Get yourself, now this is not as airtight, but it works pretty good. Get yourself a Ziploc freezer bag. All right? Then, where's my put? There it is. Okay, my thing is done. It releases that pressure. See, I've got a beautiful Ziploc seal. Now, before we start this, if you notice that maybe you didn't have it in there exactly right and it doesn't have that vacuum seal, you can cut along that edge and reseal it. Works great. So there's 2. I'll do the rest of these off camera, but I do want to show you, if you don't have one of these, you can either wrap this up in I would do like parchment paper or wax paper first, and then wrap it really tight in aluminum foil. But even at that, you're going to end up with freezer burned meat. So what I like to do is get a Ziploc baggie, get out as much of the air as you can, get yourself a straw, seal it up to one end, takes a little air, reverse, suck that air out of there. You watching? Get me a good, let's get all of it out I can. If you need to get another breath, pinch it. And you've got something that's almost airtight. It's not as good as this, but if you don't have one of those, this is a much better way to freeze it than to just stick it in one and stick it in the freezer. The air will freezer burn your meat, so make sure that you just get a good straw and suck the rest of that air out of there, and then pull the straw out while you're pinching the package. So there are two different ways to do a pork loin. I'm just going to clean up, get another, I'm going to get some ground beef that I bought in bulk out of the refrigerator, and when I come back, I will show you how to divide that up and freeze it. So I'll be back in just a second. Alrighty, now I'm going to show you how to do kind of the same process, but with ground beef. Oftentimes ground beef will go on sale, or if you buy it like in a bigger package, 3 pounds or more, it's cheaper, that kind of thing. So I have here a big container of ground chuck. Now, I'm not going to use all that in one setting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put half of it in this bowl. We'll deal with that in a minute. And then the other half, for me, about like for chilies and things like that, a 1 pound serving or so is plenty. So what I'm going to do is, just for sake of time, I already sealed the one end of my bags. And I'm going to do the other one, just like I did the pork chops, but this time with beef. But now I'm going to show you a little trick. With beef, before you seal it, if you will just flatten it out, number one, it's a space saver in your freezer. Instead of bulk, you've got it flattened out, and it can stack on top of each other easier, but it's also quicker to thaw. So, just going to put this over my container. You want to make sure that your meat, no matter which brand you're using, you don't want your meat product to be where the sealing is going on. And I'm going to hit the vacuum seal. Takes about 8 seconds. See, it's sucking all that air out of there. And it really just freezes beautifully. Have you ever just put ground beef in the package you get it from the grocery store straight in your freezer? Doesn't freeze well. This is a much, much better way to save money because you're buying in bulk, and then you can reduce your trips to the grocery store. And let's all be honest, you may go to the grocery store for one thing, but you don't walk out with just one thing. So if you have things prepped ahead, you can meal plan around the things that are on sale, and you've got your packages, and then you can just stack them right on top of each other. You can do the same thing. Again, not quite as airtight as that one, but you can do the same thing in your Ziploc bag. Still flatten it out. Okay? Get as much, start your sealing, make sure you're sealing. Get as much of the air out as you can, and then put your straw on one end, pull your seal over to it, and then there you go. And see what I mean about flattening? See how much less space that's going to take up? So that'll just go in your freezer. Now, if you want to take the other half of that and make your hamburger patties, season them however you like to season. I like to just put my either like a Montreal steak seasoning. This particular one is roasted garlic and herbs. I'm putting that in there. I'm also going to put some salt and some pepper in my mixture. I'm going to mix it up. Okay. I also have got some parchment paper that I cut into little squares, and I'm going to show you why. However, the size you like your hamburger patties, up to you. I like mine about like that. Then I'm going to lay it on one. If you put the pieces of parchment paper or wax paper in between, they don't stick together. It's just a little hint for you. And you make up however many that you need. Now my family eats, I usually eat one. My boys typically will eat two. And Mike usually eats two. So I freeze mine in packages of 6 because that's, you know, how we do. And then just stick them in your freezer. And you've got hamburgers, just take them out that morning before you go to work or the night before in a bowl. Even though I vacuum sealed, I still like to defrost my any meat, whatever it is, in some kind of container because you just never know when you might spring a leak. So I'm going to have an extra one here, a little one, but that's okay. Put an extra piece of parchment between. I promise you that parchment paper helps dramatically. And I'll put one more piece of parchment paper there, and we'll make one last one, a little one. So in this meal, I'll have an extra little one, or we will have one left over for the next day, which is A-okay. Get that out of my way. Now, I have a bigger bag. You could do the same thing in a Ziploc baggie, but I like to go ahead and put a parchment on the top to keep it from, just makes it easier. And then I just cut these myself out of parchment paper. Just put them down in there. And stick them in your container, your oh my goodness, your vacuum sealer. Now see, I'm going to have to scoot that down just a little bit. So what I'm going to do is just put that right there. It's okay. It'll work just as fine. I like this one because it has those little lip-like things that you can put your open edge under. And then I'm going to vacuum seal. And see, it sucks all of that out of there. I'm telling you, these things are worth it. They aren't just gadgets to have. If you at all like to prep ahead, and you know we all should be, it's a great way to save money. Buy it when it's on sale, cut it in individual serving sizes, label it, then you've got it in your freezer. So for, you know, an initial little investment of your budget, but you've got meals for many, 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 many weeks. And there you go. Once you hear that little click telling you can open it. And I have a perfectly sealed container of beef, and in this case, pork. You can do the same thing with a beef roast. If you find, like I like chuck roast really well for a beef roast. Buy it when it's on sale. Don't freeze it in the packaging that you get it from the grocery store. Transfer it. If you don't have one of these, put it in a Ziploc, suck it. It's a reverse. You're not blowing. You're sucking out of, like you would a straw, a drink. And then label or cut it into individual pieces for beef stew, however you want to do it. These are just a couple of little hints and tricks that you can try and save yourself some money, have your family's meals ready to go, or your meals. It's great if you're 1 or 2 people. Do the same thing, just freeze it in smaller packages. You can still buy in bulk. You can still save money. Just instead of having 6 or 8 hamburgers, have 2 or 3, whatever you want. These are just some ways that I want to bring to you to save some money. Buy it in bulk, freeze it, break it down, freeze it, label it with a Sharpie marker, pop it in your freezer, and then you're ready to go. I hope you enjoyed today's program. Thank you for joining with me, and I will see you next time on Everyday Manna.